just to follow up on the injury report, didn't mention two things last night. Chachere ended up having a concussion on the last play of the game, so wanted to make you aware of that. And then Woods had the hamstring. That was just an oversight on my part to mention that. Getting a chance to watch the film, it was, much like we thought. There was a good defensive effort, really good, solid defensive effort, some good stuff on offense. We need to continue to improve as a team. I like the fact, that we're making plays when we need to. Some situational stuff in the fourth quarter. Even though it's only a preseason game, there's still things that you want to see. And I thought we made those plays in all three phases. Defensively, we got the stop when we needed to. Offensively, had the winning drive to get the points, and then had a good drive, a good 4-minute drive to, where we made a first down. And then we have a great special teams play where Rigo kicks one down inside the 5. So those are things that are weighted heavily. And so I'm glad to see that we're making those kind of plays. I'll just address it up front, the quarterback situation. Sure you'll ask about that. Watching the tape, it was pretty much what we thought, that both guys did some good things. Made some plays, bounced back at times from some mistakes and showed some good stuff. So the evaluation process, just so you guys know, as you would expect, and that we're going to evaluate the whole body of work, right? It's not going to be, obviously this game will be a big game in it. As I told you, we're not making a decision yet. But I don't want to paint a picture like it all depends, who plays best in this one game. It's the whole body of work. They've gotten a lot of reps. That's one of the advantages they've had with Carson out. There's been a ton of reps, and we'll factor all of that into the decision of the backup quarterback. So, and if they need to start that first game. So that'll be the process. We'll let it play out this week, and we'll factor it all in. All right, I'll open it up.
All right, Zach Kiefer.
Frank, I know the plan going into Carolina was Jacob would start that game, and then Sam would start last night. After Jacob played well, was there any discussion of starting him in the second game, with the idea being I want to see him against the starters, because he didn't really get that chance against Carolina, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And there was not that discussion, figuring that, just you can't make everything apples to apples, unfortunately. You try to set it up like that, but just felt like, that would be the fairest thing we could do. It's not completely fair how it plays out sometimes, but that's why we have to evaluate all the work and not just the games. But we have one more game. We have one more game to factor into the equation. So both guys will get a fair amount of work.
You think Jacob will start Friday night against the Lions?
We're still talking about that, Zach, with all the play, with all the play time for all the guys. So, we're still, because of the late night, and getting in here a little bit later, not too much later than normal, but a little bit later than normal. So we're still kind of in process of meetings and have had some initial discussions, but really haven't finalized those yet. So we'll keep you guys updated as we can.
Joel Erickson.
Frank, I know you guys have had some vaccinations going as training camp goes on. What percentage are you guys at now?
I'm not sure the exact percentage, Joel. It's gotten better. I think it's leveled off a little bit, but we'll continue to try to encourage and educate, our players or the organization on what we believe is the right thing. And I think the last number I had heard was 75-ish%, but I don't know the exact percentage number.
Mike Chappell.
Yeah, Frank, with just the 3 games, I don't know how it's altered how you approach the preseason, but you clearly haven't played a couple of guys that have been healthy, T.Y. and Jonathan. How are you weighing how much, whether a running back needs to get hit before the first game? How do you weigh that in your mind to where what's enough and what's too much?
Yeah, it's Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. It felt like the week that we played the Panthers, that second practice got pretty physical, and Jonathan got hit quite a few times. And, he got hit quite a few times in that practice. So it felt like that was good work for him. There's probably a chance he'll play some in this last game. We're still talking that through. I feel like in many respects, seeing Jonathan and kind of his vision and how he's looked in practice, he looks like he's in mid-season form to me. Like he really looks good, like he's seeing it clearly, making the right cuts. As you said, Chap, there's a little bit to getting hit. We try to simulate that in some ways, thudding off at times and, getting certain work for the running backs in the individual. But there's probably a chance we'll want to get him a few carries this week.
Is there a chance that Kelly gets back in practice this week?
Yes, there is a chance that Kelly gets back in practice.
JJ?
Frank, I know last night you said it felt like Julian had a pretty good game at left tackle, and you went back and you watched the film. What did you see out of him?
Yeah, I thought he did. I thought he played well in the run game and the pass game. And so that was good. He's been, he had this little bit of a late start because of COVID, but he's been continuing to improve. And so I feel good about his progress.
Just generally speaking, you talked about with the quarterbacks, how, one game won't make a determination. When you put all of this together with all of these evaluations, with all the practices, where do you feel like the evaluation process is with that right now?
I think it's good. We've gotten a lot of information. Like you said, it's all the practices, it's all the meetings, it's all the discussions, it's all the side conversations, gathering information about all those things. And like, there's so much positive. There's so much positive. You got two young quarterbacks that we've drafted that we feel like have good upside and proven that they know how to play winning football. So first and foremost, we feel like the evaluation process is at a good spot. Like hey, we're in good shape. We got two guys who are giving us a chance here. So games are weighted a little bit heavier for sure, but there's a lot of reps and a lot of meeting time that are going into the equation.
George Bremer?
Coach, through two preseason games, how would you evaluate your young pass rushers and Panagu, Toure, and Pay in particular?
Yeah, I really feel like Ben has had a really good camp. I mean, and there's a thing with Ben. It's been, Ben has always shown flashes, but this has been the most consistency that we've seen from Ben. So I'm encouraged by that. He just seems to be in a really good place mentally, just like a very confident, strong mindset, really playing hard and really playing smart. Quiddy, you could just meeting as a staff today, going through the game review, hearing Bake talk about, not only his play, but just how he was on the sideline, just feel really good where he's at. And it was good for him to kind of get in there, get a sack, but not just that, but see how he responds on the sideline. How does he talk about what he's seeing? That's a big thing with coaches and players. How does that conversation go on the sideline? And, everything was very positive.
Kevin Bowen?
Hey, Frank, obviously you said earlier that this competition is still going on between Jacob and Sam. Do you, in your mind, is there a leader at this point, or do you look at both of them as even?
I don't, I think they're both in the same zip code. You know what I mean? I think they're both in the same zip code. And, we had a good meeting this morning, this afternoon. I met with Marcus and Scott this morning. We talked a lot about it. Then we met as an offensive staff after we watched the film together. And, and I wanted to give I wanted to hear from the whole offensive staff, how do the rest of the guys feel? What's their, just general take on, and we don't just do this about quarterbacks, but obviously it's a primary topic of conversation. So, listen to everybody's thoughts and commentary there. It's good to hear from everybody. We want to, like I said, we want to factor everything in here. I think both guys are in the same zip code. They have different styles of play. They have different strengths and weaknesses, but I think they're both good players.
And then how concerning are the 3 interceptions from Sam in about a game's work?
Yeah, we don't obviously want turnovers. I would say yesterday, the first one, I don't know if that ball got tipped at the line of scrimmage or not. I didn't think it did, but maybe it did. Some people were saying maybe it got tipped. I'm not sure, but I would put that first one, on Sam. There was, his footwork and his drop, wasn't exactly what we're looking for in that. So it didn't put himself in the best position. I would say the second one, I wouldn't put that second interception. There was some miscommunication on that second interception, and Sam got put in a bad spot. So, those are just the things you have to factor into the equation. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens sometimes. You're the quarterback, it's on you. You're the one that throws the interception, but there was just a little bit of for lack of a better term, a miscommunication on that play.
Greg Doyle.
Hi, Frank. How hard or severely or whatever do you grade drops? And do you have a number that you can put on it? Because I've been trying to count the drops in the first 2 games, and it's hard. It looks hard to me. There's 2 hands, but the ball is kind of stretched out. How hard do you grade that? And do you factor that in? I guess you have to, the quarterback's numbers.
Yeah, for sure, Greg. Yeah, we do factor it in. There's no formula that we have. We take it on a case-by-case basis. Are we grading that as a drop or a breakup? Like for instance, we had the discussion today on Pittman's little slant route that he ran down there in the red zone. Are we grading that as a drop, or are we grading that as a breakup? Because the DB did make a decent play on it, but it's a ball that Pittman's normally going to catch. So how are we going to grade that? So yeah, they're all done on a case-by-case basis. You do factor that in. We don't have a formula, to put it into, for instance, the quarterback's thing. Well, he really was this, but if the drops affected him this way, it's just kind of factored in just kind of in an intangible way. But as far as receivers go, Greg, I'll say this: obviously drops are a bad deal, but I'm not the kind of coach who thinks a drop is fatal to a receiver's career or game. We never want to see them, but they happen occasionally. So I think you got to have patience, and you got to live through some of those things.
Okay, and then last question for me is, it seems like a no-brainer, but at the same time, I'm not sure you can actually answer this honestly. If you're about to see what I'm talking about, when you have a player, you're trying to figure out who your last safety will be, or your last linebacker, or your last whatever, and you got 2 candidates, and one's vaccinated and one's not, and it doesn't come down to politics, it comes down to availability. How is that part of the factors you make your roster on which guys will be available, or at least you feel better about vaccination wise?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Yeah, I think everything's factored in. Like you said, Greg, availability is part of it, and there's a lot of dynamics that go into it, and I think there's a lot of dynamics that go into it. Are those discussions? I think the most important thing is who's the best player, who's going to help the team. That is by far and away the number one factor. Like you said, though, it's a fair question. Well, what if 2 guys what if it's a dead heat? Well, it usually isn't like that. There usually isn't a dead heat, but it's fair to say that everything gets factored.
Thanks, Frank.
Jim Aiello.
Yeah, Frank, this is probably a stupid question, but I just want to kind of confirm it with you. Is when you do name a starter for Detroit, can we read into that's the guy you think is leading the race to the quarterbacks?
Yeah, man, I'm glad you asked that question, because yeah, that would be the natural thing. And I'm not saying that that's not true, but I'm not saying that it is true. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you asked that question, Jim, because this, as we talked it through today, yeah, there's a lot of dynamics at play here, and we're just trying to do what's best for the team and what's best in light of the whole context of the situation. So yeah, you could read that into it, but I don't think that's an absolute.
Real quick, because we're almost through this and somehow we haven't asked for an update on Carson Wentz. I don't think we're allowed to do that. So just a week of walkthroughs and things like that. How's he looked and any updates on his progress?
Yeah, he looks good, and I'm actually glad you asked that as well. You'll see him out there, you're going to see him out there on the practice field this week. He'll be out there tomorrow. Taking some things, and we're
Practicing, Frank? Like practicing?
Yes. He'll be out there. He'll be limited.
Well, then I'm glad Jim asked that, because that is a little bit of an.
Thanks for burying the lead, Frank.
Yeah, no, he'll be out there, and it'll be limited. He'll be limited, but he will be participating, as will Kelly, and as will Quentin Nelson.
Steven, did you have a question?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was going to ask about the wide receivers. You have some young guys. Well, I think really Strawn and Patman in particular physically have some similarities, but and you only have so many spots. How do you make those decisions? Toward the bottom of that depth chart at receiver, because your top four, I guess, we kind of know who they are. So just how do you think that'll play out, and how will those decisions get made?
Yeah, this obviously there's a lot to consider there, because we feel so strong about this room and about some of these young players. So, special teams factors into that. Versatility factors into that. What role we see them playing, how they complement those first four guys. In what role they would play. I think those are the main factors that we think about with those other guys.
And just one other unrelated clarification. You threw out the 75% number, just roughly, on the vaccination. Because we've used two different figures, is that with one shot, or was that like fully vaxxed, if you recall?
I believe that's fully vaccinated. Do I have that right, Conti?
I'll follow up with
Okay.
you, Steve. Yep.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
And last one, George Bremer.
Kind of sticking with the young receivers theme, Des Patman's special teams rep at the end of the game, how much does that factor into the overall valuation?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it does factor into it. The receivers all know that, that when you get down to you're the fourth, fifth or sixth receiver, you have to contribute on special teams, and the more, the better. So, we expect our starters to contribute on special teams, many of them. So if you're not going to be a starter, if you're going to be the fourth, fifth, or sixth receiver, you better be able to contribute on teams. It's an absolute must. So it was good, nice for Des to get an opportunity to get in there. I think he's been growing in that role, and certainly has had a good preseason.